Alright, hi people, it's Scsigs here, and I'm here to do a video for you guys today about remasters and Blu-ray releases of various anime that we have been seeing over the last... These started coming out. The Bleach sets started coming out in 2016. Death Note, I believe, came out in 2015, somewhere in there. So, the last 8 years... actually more, because we got the level sets, which came out in 2011. Dragon Ball Kai came out in 2009. But then the Dragon Boxes came out in 2003. So exactly 20 years at the time I'm filming this, which is in early December 2023. By the time you guys see this, it'll be about a month later. So, yeah. But I just wanted to do a video about this stuff because I find this topic interesting. So, yeah, and as well as since I did the video on the Dragon Ball Z, or just Dragon Ball in general, releases over the years, mainly covering Dragon Ball Z's, and then recommending the other ones that I had in there, I figured that this is actually a good time to do a video talking about various remasters of certain franchises that have come and went over the years, or come and gone over the years. Came and went, come and gone, whatever. But yeah. There's also something I want to say, when it comes to the various, movies that have been released for these franchises. I have the Sailor Moon ones as well, but I didn't want to dig them out. But you see that I have the original 3 Naruto movies, the Steelbook, where they're all on one disc, and it has this terrible cover. Then you have the Shippuden movies, which came out in 2 4-packs, and then the Bleach 4-pack. There's also the Inuyasha movie 4-pack, which had the movies in 1080i rather than 1080p for some reason. But, yeah, I really wish they would reissue that with 1080p transfers of the films, because I know they have them, but whatever. These are not remasters, at the very least not by Viz. These were done, well, first of all, these were probably stored in HD in Japan. Then secondly, they would have been done by the animation studio, which in this case for Naruto and Bleach, as well as Inuyasha, I believe, is Studio Peria. So, yeah. Now, Funimation has done remasters of the Dragon Ball Z films, the 13 Dragon Ball Z films. I believe they technically remastered the original Dragon Ball films as well for their DVDs, as well as the 2 Z TV specials. Technically, they did do a standard remaster of Dragon Ball and GT as well as GT's TV special, A Hero's Legacy, I believe it's what it's called. So, yeah, but, just talking about the TV shows and everything, because minus the cropping on the Bardock and Trunks specials, which shouldn't have been cropped, because I don't know why they did, Funimation for some reason treats them like movies. They're not movies, they're TV specials. They're 2 double-length episodes of Dragon Ball Z. So yeah, they were part of the official production history of the show, not the movies. I don't know. But yeah, but they did those, minus the cropping of those TV specials. I don't have a problem with their movie remasters. The fact that it seems like they're also better than Toei's official remasters, at least for what you can get on the discs in Japan, although the Amazon digital versions of those films do not have these. They were censored to some extent, and they have green tints on the discs. The Bardock TV special, though, had a really good remaster from what I know. That has not seen the light of day outside of Japan except in Germany, for some reason. Don't know why. I'm assuming the Trunks special got remastered, but I haven't heard anything about that. So, yeah, or at least I don't remember hearing anything about it. So, yeah, so we're basically gonna go from, I think, best to worst when it comes to this. And we're also gonna go in the middle in regards to these. So, The best remaster release I think I have of all of these shows is the Death Note Mega Edition, which you can also get in a standard release, with just the Blu-ray case and a slipcover. It comes with a nice cardboard or chipboard box, and the pilot chapter for Death Note translated into English by Viz. Which I got this back in 2015. I did an unboxing for it back then if you want to see what's in it. But this is really good. I got the DVD set, I believe, like several months before this came out, before this was even announced. I think it was back in 2014. And then it was also on Netflix for a little bit at the same time. So I think I put up the first episode on Netflix. The Netflix version, I believe, was the DVD masters that Viz had. They looked awful. They had a horrible yellow tint to the footage. And on top of that, secondly, Death Note was digitally animated in 480i, I believe. It was animated in widescreen, thankfully, but it was also animated in 480i, which we don't know. That's interlaced versus progressive scan, if you don't know the difference between the two. Progressive scan is basically where everything just goes in a natural fashion, a nice smoothness to it. Interlaced is where frames get skipped. I don't know if that really helps. You can look up videos on the difference. If you've ever watched, let's say, 90s Star Trek, let's say Star Trek Deep Space Nine or Voyager, you look at the backgrounds mainly, although this can happen with stuff in the foreground. But I've mainly noticed it with stuff in the background when there's like lines and shit. If you've ever noticed that there's shimmering and aliasing around objects in the backgrounds of them, that's what that is. It's missing frames and thus missing detail. And on top of that, it just makes the picture look terrible. So yeah. Now, when it came to the Death Note Omega Edition, this, I think, was the first attempt by Viz Media in any fashion to do a remaster of any of their shows from the standard F days into HD that did not have HD masters or were not able to be properly remastered in Japan. So, yeah, they, I think, subcontracted out a company to do this. I don't know what company, because I don't think they credit the company anywhere on anything, even just a website that notes this was done by this company, or at the very least, no one that I know of has been able to track that information down. So yeah, maybe they do it in-house, but I don't know. This remaster is actually pretty good. It got a good amount of color correction to, I think, reset the white balance and shit. So the colors in this are really good. There's no yellow to any extent. I watched the entire series through this set. Looked very good. And then, yeah, this has 2 animated Death Note movies as well that I believe recap the series and everything. And I haven't watched those because I'm not interested, but, I watched the entire series through this, and yeah, good color correction and a good upscale to 1080p. I couldn't even tell that it was a standard F show upscaled, even though I'm pretty sure I knew at the time that that's what this was. So yeah. And if you want to know the difference between digitally animated and hand-drawn, basically digitally animated is when they did it on computers using drawing software and shit like that. And Photoshop and whatnot. Hand animation is where they literally drew, like, the characters and the backgrounds and everything onto cells, which then got put onto backgrounds, and they shoot those with a camera and splice all the images together. 24 FPS, basically. And yeah, that's basic filmmaking, with all of that. That's how animation was done for a very long time until the digital revolution in the early 2000s. Maybe the late 90s, but definitely the early 2000s. And a lot of studios started making the jump to digital animation, both in the West and in the East, in around the early 2000s because of that. Some studios, mainly Western ones, were able to, or were forward thinking enough to make their shows in widescreen and HD, because they knew that widescreen and HD televisions were on the horizon of becoming standard in people's houses. Not every studio in Japan, though, was. Thankfully, I will give Toei a bit of credit when it comes to this. One Piece, at the very least, when it went HD, it also went widescreen. So Funimation's / Crunchyroll's releases from episode 207 on, even though they only released them on DVD, were still in widescreen, and the downscaling to 480p was actually pretty good. There's not a lot of compression to it, or at least noticeable compression. There's not a lot of noticeable artifacting or anything. It basically just looks like a general downscale to 480p from 1080p. So, yeah. Other studios, though, were pretty stubborn about this. They didn't forward think enough to animate ongoing shows in widescreen for a while, and I will talk about this as I go on. So, yeah. But yeah, as a result of them producing stuff with digital inking and everything on a computer, they didn't save anything to film. I believe they only just saved like the assets or the final versions of the episodes and everything. So upscaling is really the only way you're going to get episodes in HD, but even then they're not true HD. It's literally just an upscale to 1080p. So, yeah. And also, when I was talking about 1080i in regards to the Inuyasha films, 1080i is basically the interlaced equivalent to 720p. So, yeah. In regards to the overall quality. So, yeah. And on top of that, for somehow, I don't know how this makes any sense, interlaced video, like 1080i video, takes up more space than 1080p. I don't know how that makes any sense, but that's what I've read. So, yeah, it's really dumb, but that's just how it is. So, yeah. So, in regards to the best upscale release that I have of a pre-HD show, I would say Death Note is definitely the one to get the best HD remaster out of all of them. Now, if you want middle of the road, that are just okay. Not bad, not overly great. First, let's go with Bleach. Now, Bleach was a show that for its first 100-some episodes was animated in, well, first 4x3, but also digitally in 480i. And after a certain number of episodes, like 100-some episodes, it started being animated in widescreen. This was around, I think, 2010 or so. Maybe a little bit before that, maybe like 2009. But not but not HD. This is a misconception people have. You can have HD without widescreen, and you can have widescreen without HD. Look at Star Trek, the original series, and The Next Generation when it comes to having 1080p but not having widescreen, and then look at Doctor Who series 1 to 4 from the revived era, where it's widescreen but not HD. And also the first David Tennant special was also widescreen but not HD. It was upscaled to HD, but it wasn't shot in HD. So, yeah. Yeah, aspect ratio and resolution are separate things. You know, some people don't honestly understand this, but it's just really dumb when it comes to people not understanding this. So Bleach started in 2016. It was their next project, I believe, after Death Note. And there was a bit of a staggered release initially with Bleach. The first 2 sets, I believe, were throughout 2016, like every 6 months or so. 3 was released in 2017. I think it was 4. It was either 4 or 5 that got, or that we had to wait, or maybe it was 6. Either way, it was somewhere between sets 4 through 6, where, for some reason that I don't understand whatsoever, Viz decided to wait about 1.5 years in between releases. Why? Why? It's not like we were in the pandemic yet. That's so fucking dumb. But yeah. And then, after that, we got a pretty steady release schedule of the rest of the episodes. It can't be that they were trying to upscale the episodes or they were trying to get suitable masters from Japan, because they already had the masters. They had finished releasing the DVDs at that point, so it doesn't make any sense to me. Now, in regards to the Bleach DVDs, again, these are an upscale to 1080p. The reason why I say that these are, like, middle of the road is because they don't look bad, but they are definitely the earlier DVD masters that were in 480i upscaled to 1080p. And the reason I know this is because, for one, the show doesn't look much better than it did on DVD. Okay? Two, the end credits sequences are still interlaced. They did not properly transfer those into a progressive scan format, which is stupid because they could have easily just done it once and then carried on those credits for the rest of however long those credits went, then did the next set, and yeah. The openings are fine, the main episodes are fine, they don't look interlaced that much. There's some rainbowing here and there when it comes to the standard def episodes, but yeah. When it switches to widescreen, the episodes look weird. They look like they're 1080p, like masters, downscaled to 480p, then upscaled again to 1080. That's the best way I can describe it, and if you want to know the difference between true 1080p and upscaled, basically, they look kind of hazy. They don't look like they're not as in focus as they could be. Like, I think they should have taken a sharpening tool a little bit and, like, taking care of those soft and fuzzy edges. And then, I don't know, they just don't look good when it comes to that, or they don't look their best. I have not gotten to the actual HD episodes. In that case, I'm assuming they just took their 1080p masters that they had and put them on the disc, because they put those masters on streaming and digital storefronts, so I'm assuming they got the clearance to be able to put them on disc. So yeah. I doubt that the Japanese studio could do much better in regards to this besides putting the episodes and credit sequences in actual progressive scan, like converting them and shit, but I don't really know anything else that they could have done to make the episodes look much better. So I'm fine with what they did here. I know the limitations of what Viz Media and the people that they got to do the upscale had to face, so I can accept these for what they are. On top of that, I would actually recommend these if you have not gotten Bleach on physical media but want to. These releases are actually pretty decent. They are, minus the masters on them not being that great, but you have to accept that they're not that great, because of the source, like, masters that they had. These sets contain more episodes than the DVDs. Yeah. They contain generally about 27 to 28 episodes a set. It varies by set, usually. Like on this, it has 27 episodes. I know at least some other ones say 28. There we go. Set 2 says 28 episodes. So yeah, it fluctuates between there. So about 7 episodes a disc, 4 discs each. 7 episodes a disc for the most part, though the last one would obviously have 6 if you do the math right. And yeah, plus they transferred over, I believe, all of the DVD's special features, so you're not losing anything. On top of that, the audio and subtitle options are basically the same between the DVDs and these. You're not losing anything by getting these Blu-rays. On top of that, there's less compression and everything, due to Blu-ray being a higher bitrate format and everything. So yeah, and on top of that, at the very least, you're getting better audio quality. So if that matters to you, there you go. So yeah. But granted, though, these aren't 5.1 stereo audio. These are 2.0, both in English and Japanese, because Viz, for some reason, doesn't like to do 5.1 transfer or 5.1 audio mixes for their dubs, unless they're like movies. But yeah. Next we get to another okay release, which is Naruto. Naruto, they got out way faster than Bleach. Like, legit. I just want to... I hate Viz for doing this. When it comes to movies, Viz for some reason has a very staggered release on which ones they'll do first and how quickly. So, yeah. But Bleach, this is the last thing latest thing in regards to Bleach Blu-rays that we've gotten. We'll probably get the 1,000 Year Blood War arc sometime next year. But yeah, they took their sweet-ass time re-releasing these movies in this 4-pack. This is not that much different from the Inuyasha 4-pack, though these are in 1080p, thankfully. But yeah, when it comes to these, Viz Media had the 1080p masters for a long time. However, they refused for some reason to re-release the first 2 Bleach movies at the very least on Blu-ray. They released the last 2 on Blu-ray because that was a format that they were already releasing stuff on. The first 2 movies were only released here in America on DVD before this set. In other countries, got the 1080p masters on a disc, plus Viz Media had the 1080p masters because they put them on digital storefronts and streaming. So, I have no idea what the holdup was, but Viz Media are very, very stingy when it comes to doing that for re-releases. Granted, though, when they usually do a re-release, they do them pretty well. Now, in regards to the Naruto movies, similarly, we had to wait a while to get these on Blu-ray, because they released the last 6, I believe, Naruto Shippuden movies on Blu-ray. They, for some reason, refused to re-release the movie and Bonds on disc or on Blu-ray before the Rasengan collection. And when it comes to the triple feature collector's edition, they did not... I think they released this after the first Shippuden set, but before the second one, or maybe after the second one. I think it was at least after the first Shippuden set. But when it came to this release, it was kind of weird. Like, when they did this release, they did a standard Blu-ray case and then this steelbook. And yeah. And in regards to this ugly artwork, the person who they got to do it is a regular American comic book author, I believe, or artist. And from what I know on his Twitter, he shares drawings of like manga and anime characters where he gets pretty close to the style while also still doing his own thing with it. Why they just didn't have him do that, I don't know, but this is just fucking ugly. I think it's mainly just Naruto's face. If Naruto's face were drawn more closely to how he's actually drawn in the manga or the anime, I think it would be a little bit better, because everything else I don't really necessarily have a problem with in this picture. Just Naruto's face is ugly as fuck. But yeah, he's just fugly. But yeah, yeah, that was the 3 Naruto movies I believe were re-released in 2017 or so. Maybe 2018, I don't know. Something like that. Now, the Naruto Blu-rays were starting to come out in either 2020 or 2021. And they did about 4 a year. Because these are basically just what was on the DVDs, just put on a Blu-ray disc. Same number of episodes, at least for the season sets. Same number of episodes, and the same episodes just in general. You're not missing out on any content here. And if there are any other special features, they're ported over from the DVDs. So you're not missing out on any content that was from the DVDs. So, yeah. Now, these are slightly worse than the Bleach Blu-rays, only because it's just straight up, you can tell, it's just straight up the DVD masters upscaled to 1080p from 480i. They did not, for some reason, take into account the rainbowing and sometimes shimmering that would happen in the episodes from their DVD masters. They didn't take any sort of like Photoshop tools or whatever to make sure that those were painted out, to make sure that they weren't distracting. I have an eye for stuff like that, so that gets distracting every time, and I wonder why they just didn't take care of that. It's weird to me that they didn't take care of that. But yeah, so they did 4 of these. Basically like the Bleach Blu-rays, slightly worse because rainbowing. The Bleach Blu-rays don't really have that from what I remember. I could be misremembering, but I don't think they have that. So, yeah. But I do recommend these Blu-rays because at the very least, you're getting the episodes in a decent format, even though they're not 1080, they're not actual 1080p. But again, granted, these were, granted, what the hell? These episodes were animated in standard definition in 4:3 digitally. You're not really going to get a ton of quality. And again, I don't really necessarily know how much better the Japanese studio could do if they were to remaster these episodes themselves. So, yeah, maybe they could do a bit better. Weirdly enough, there is an HD remaster recut of Naruto. Called like Naruto Hen or some shit like that. It's basically a recut. It's basically like a proto Kai version of the series, because I believe it came out in 2008, before, like a year before Kai did. Basically in Japan, after the original Naruto series ended, they took the footage, cut out all of the filler, or as much as they could, and then, I think they also animated some new stuff that wasn't in the manga, or was from the manga, but wasn't animated for the show, something like that. I believe they also did new openings and endings, and possibly re-recorded some of the dialogue, but I don't know. But they did that, from my research, they did that, but for some reason Viz Media has not licensed that version of Naruto and re-released it over here. Or just released it over here. I genuinely don't know why. You could just take the dialogue recordings from these, put them to the music tracks and everything, and just everything would be fine. You can literally just, like, you can literally just, you can literally just market it as, Naruto Kai. Yeah. But yeah, that's just something for you guys to know. So yeah, I don't blame Viz whatsoever for the meh job that they did with all these. Naruto Shippuden. This is more worth it than the DVDs. I'm just stating that right now. Just like Bleach, Shippuden, in regards to the DVDs, were released with only, like, at best, like, 13 episodes a pop for the most part. 12 to 13, something like that. On top of that, the earliest DVDs, because I have them, so I've seen them, the earliest DVDs have really bad masters on them. Like the Death Note DVDs I mentioned a bit ago. From what I remember, they have yellow tints to them that make them look like someone pissed all over the filter for them. And yeah, it just makes the episodes look bad. On top of that, those DVDs were from 2008. They don't have the best bit rates. So the episodes just look crunched on top of looking like someone pissed all over the filter. So, yeah. So with these Blu-rays, what they did is not only have more episodes, they have about 27, 28%, depending on which one you're getting. Yeah, they took care to color correct the episodes, thankfully, and they're not as compressed. There's no real noticeable compression from what I understand, or from what I know. And I've only checked the first episode, but the first episode, from what I can understand in regards to these sets, is pretty indicative of what you'll get in each set. So, yeah. And everything from the DVDs, if there were any special features that were special, got ported over to these, on top of having more special features as well. That's also a thing, I believe, at the very least. So, yeah, in addition to the standard special features you get on these releases, like clean opening and endings and everything. But, yeah. But I would recommend the Shippuden Blu-rays and the Bleach Blu-rays over the DVDs any day. They're not as great as they could be, but they're not horrible. They're just okay. But that's not a bad okay. That's on the upper side of okay. So, yeah, it's even good. Now, to what I think are, well, yeah, so, I'm going to be talking about the Dragon Ball Z Dragon Boxes, I guess, right now. Just trying to think of how to really organize this. So I recently got all of these because I've had it with Funimation and Crunchyroll and their continual, like, mistreatment of Dragon Ball as a franchise in regards to home media releases for the older shows and everything. They basically, Funimation at the very least, I don't necessarily blame Crunchyroll for this. Crunchyroll recently did re-release the 2013 and 2014 shitty cropped Blu-rays at Walmart, I believe, as well as I think a different set as well that collects all of the season sets, but at Walmart it's in packs of 3. Although actually, no, I think there's also a set that has a different box case or slip or a different like cardboard box around, or not even cardboard, like thick like construction paper type case around it that has all of the season sets in it, but it also doesn't have the slip covers for some reason for those sets, whereas the earlier one does, because it just collects the season sets with the slip covers. Very inconsistent on what they do in terms of re-releases, but considering another release I'm going to talk about in a bit, Funimation kept doing really bad remasters of Dragon Ball. The Dragon Boxes are really the only ones that are complete that I can recommend, but there's also a caveat to that, in which case they're fucking expensive. I did not talk about this, I don't think, or maybe I did, in the like full unboxing of these. So I got the 5th, 6th, and 7th Dragon Box sets when they came out through Amazon. I think for about 50 or so, maybe a little bit less money each. Maybe, I think some of them might have been 30. I'd have to look on my Amazon purchases. But, yeah. But I got them as they were going out of print. After the 7th set came out, I bought the last 3, but I didn't know they were going to go out of print, so I didn't snap up the first 4 before they went out of print. So, yeah, I found out about these really late, in like late 2011 or so. So, yeah, maybe early 2012 before they completely went out of print on Amazon. But yeah, so more recently in the last few months, I started tracking down the rest of the Dragon Boxes once I started looking on eBay and seeing what ones I could get for the lowest amount of money I could see. So, yeah, this first one was about $80 after shipping and tax. Second and third ones came out to about $400 together because they were from the same seller. And on top of that, seller gave me 20% off on both of them, which was very nice. Then we have Volume 4, which was the most expensive. This was a little less than $300. I think I got off pretty easy because I already had 3 of the Dragon Boxes and I only had to buy 4 of them. So, yeah. And on top of that, they were in pretty good condition. Like the discs are in pretty good condition. The boxes are in really good condition. Minus some shelfware on a few of them, but it's just minor shelfware. There's also some like sun bleaching on a few of them, mainly the second and third ones. You can kind of see it. But yeah. But I now have all the Dragon Boxes. I've gotten tired of Funimation and now Crunchyroll mistreating the franchise, and especially Dragon Ball Z for no fucking reason. So I decided to just bite the bullet and get them. Now, these are not necessarily the best the series can look, but these are the best looking releases or the best looking complete release of Dragon Ball Z, the show. Why do I say that? Easy. The level sets. I'll talk about those more in a bit when I get to the best release that or versions of the releases that I have. that were remastered from like film stock. But basically, Toei puts the original Dragon boxes in Japan together in conjunction with Pony Canyon, because apparently, this is what Geekdom 101 said, apparently Toei noticed that a lot of Japanese fans of Dragon Ball were importing the DVDs, the uncut DVDs, and VHS sets from the States, from here in the United States, to Japan, because Toei, stupidly, did not put out any VHS or DVDs of their own until 2003. Yeah. So probably around 2002 when they started making the deals and everything and giving Pony Canyon their masters and everything, Pony Canyon cleaned up the film as best as they could for these releases. Problem with these releases is that the Japanese audio, well, probably the best out of most releases from the time and a little bit afterwards, not necessarily now because of AB Group, but we'll talk about that in a bit. The Japanese audio is very muffled and very scuffed because of the fact that it's optical audio from the film itself, from the film stock. They are not separate audio masters that were recorded for the episodes at the time. Those would be separate. Toei apparently junked those in regards to the dialogue recordings. So, yeah, even if they wanted to, Toei cannot make an actual, like, either stereo or 5.1 surround soundtrack a thing for the original Dragon Ball and Z, the shows. The movies are fine. GT, apparently, they still have the high-quality audio. I'm assuming because it's only 64 episodes in a TV special. But, yeah, whereas Dragon Ball Z is 291 episodes, the original Dragon Ball is 153. That's well over 400 episodes. So, yeah, it's like 440-some episodes. So, 444, if I'm doing the math right. So, yeah. And then GT makes it 508. 508, plus there's 3 TV specials. So, yeah, 2 of them being Dragon Ball Zs for the Trunks and Bardock specials, like I mentioned earlier. So, yeah. Plus, the colors warped over time. Apparently, Toei didn't necessarily store the film masters that well over time. For some reason I don't understand. And then, on top of that, most of the episodes, minus a select few for some reason, in the Namek saga, they saved the episodes on 16mm film. Now we get into talk about film. Film is a thing that preserves a lot of good quality when it comes to frames, which are basically just pictures. Literally what a video does is it takes minute snapshots of everything that's in front of it and saves it. Like, I'm recording this on an iPod Touch, because it's just the easiest way to do it. For this, I don't really require the most high-tech camera equipment. And digitally, it is saving every single frame and everything. If you slow this down and go frame by frame, it's just a picture. It's just a series of pictures. That's what video recordings are. So, yeah, and film is just a way to store that. And you put all the successive frames together, you get a moving image. That's how that works. So, yeah. On top of that, audio recording. You sync that with the moving frame or moving pictures right in front of you that you have for video, and you get a movie or a video or TV show episode or whatever. So, yeah. That's very, very dumbing it down as best I can. You just look up more stuff. And it's probably very obvious to a lot of you guys. So, sorry if I just came off like condescending or anything, but there are people that don't know this. So yeah. Film can deteriorate pretty rapidly. And considering the original Dragon Ball anime started airing in 1986 to 1989, and then Dragon Ball Z started airing in 1989 to 1995. Yeah. at the time that they were producing the Dragon Box Z, as it was called in Japan, the anime or the show was about 13 years old, I'm assuming, when they started producing these in Japan, back in probably 2002. And then, 14 years old when these DVDs actually came out. So you're talking about 13 to 14-year-old DVD or film masters that were not kept in the best condition, that are 16 millimeter film, and and whatever. So yeah, and because they weren't kept in the best condition, they warped over time in regards to the colors. This goes for the original Dragon Ball and GT as well, even though they were first-gen masters instead of Funimation's third-gen duplicate masters. So the colors very much warped over time, some of the details started to fade, and yeah. And so even though the Dragon Box Masters, like I said, are the best masters we can get at the time at the very least, they're not the best that Toei could have done. Basically what they would need to do is go back to the original 16mm first-gen film stock that they have in Japan and color correct it. Fat chance of Toei doing that, but yeah. So, yeah. So, I say that to say, if you're going to get the Dragon Boxes, if you're going to try to hunt them down for the lowest prices possible at this point, just know what you're getting. The Dragon Boxes, the US Dragon Boxes, also only have the 5.1 surround sound audio for the English dub that was mixed for the Orange Brick sets. These do not have the track with the US broadcast music, which some people do have a problem with, and I can understand that, like certain nostalgic fans for that stuff. I don't give a shit because I did not grow up watching Dragon Ball Z on TV. I caught maybe a few episodes here and there, but I did not grow up like religiously watching it. Mainly because when I was a kid, I didn't quite like understand the TV schedules and everything, at least when it came to Toonami. So, yeah, although, again, I did catch the stray episode here and there of Dragon Ball Z. I watched more Dragon Ball GT when it originally aired than I did Dragon Ball Z, and that's only because I think it had a better time slot that I was more aware of. So, yeah. So, yeah. But if you are someone who's more nostalgic for that original dub music, you're not going to get the Falconer score here. Sorry. If you're not someone who gives a shit about that, try and find these for a decent price. But yeah, I spent over $700 on the first 4 Dragon Boxes. Try and do better, or at least try and match. Because, yeah. But if you have none of the Dragon Boxes, you're going to be spending more, probably. So, yeah. The same can be said for the original Dragon Ball when that was released in the Dragon Boxes and GT. Why Toei just didn't let Pony Canyon use the higher quality GT audio masters that they have, I don't know. And the reason why we know that they have them is because people in Japan have recorded rerun broadcasts of GT episodes, and they have the higher quality stereo audio that was mixed in the 90s still. It's really dumb. So either Toei has saved a complete stereo mix of GT's episodes in the TV special, or they let the TV broadcasters have the mix, or have the audio that they have. I don't know, it's just really fucking weird. On the DVDs themselves, they have low quality audio, and it's just, yeah, it's really bad. Which is why we're going for the broadcast, which is why a lot of fans want the broadcast audio that fans have been able to track down from various sources in Japan that had VHS recordings and ripped the audio from the VHS recordings and everything. I'll get to that when we get to that. So, yeah. So, just getting to that in regards to the Dragon Boxes, they're good and bad in different ways at the same time. But I would still say the Dragon Box Masters are still the best masters when it comes to a remaster of Dragon Ball Z. I would not recommend any other Dragon Ball Z release in the United States at the very least. So yeah, at this present time, if that changes, I will let you guys know. So yeah. So now we're starting off with the Dragon boxes. I only cover like that because they are out of print. On top of that, it's probably a good transition to what are the best to very mediocre, and then also middle of the road releases of some other shows. So I showed these off a bit ago. The level sets, I talked about these, I believe, in the video I did on the history of Dragon Ball releases here in America. These were done by Funimation back in 2011. Or actually, no, I think they farmed them out to a film company in Texas that, let me just see if they have an about the transfer thing in these things. Nope. But from what I understand, they farmed these out to a post-production company in Texas that specializes in post-production stuff for like movies and stuff like that. So, yeah, or TV shows or whatever. To remaster these. There's even a featurette, I believe, on the first one where they talk about transferring everything from the film. Yeah, on the first one it says transferred from the original Japanese film. Now, Funimation has a third generation duplicated print, which means at some point they copied the original first gen prints onto new film. That's one generation. And then copied those onto another film. That's third generation. With their third gen masters, there's a few more layers of duplication grain, as it's called, because of the new film stock that they were putting the episodes onto, on top of the native grain that was on the first gen prints, as well as other blemishes and spots and whatever else that were on the original film and the second gen film. Now, these were, I guess, done at a time where the second gen film was done at a time where, or before the color on the film started to degrade that much. Not sure when, but probably the early 90s. Early to mid 90s, probably. And then, because I imagine Toei probably copied them and then sent them off to some other countries that had licensed the show. So, yeah, for their dubbing and airing. So, yeah, and then they did the same thing for a third gen take for certain other countries. Funimation had apparently heard about these in the early to mid 2000s. They requested them from Toei. Toei gave them for both the original Dragon Ball and Z. Apparently, after they had, I guess, remastered the original Dragon Ball from that third gen film, they threw out those masters. They threw out that film. Because, in their words, no one cares about the original Dragon Ball. That is just so short-sighted and stupid, I don't even want to comment on it. But yeah, Dragon Ball Z, they've since kept this film. And it's what they use even for the... they've used the same things for later Blu-ray releases. These were actually done pretty well in regards to the remastering. They were cleaned up pretty decently. There's a few blemishes, like some leftover detail on the frames and whatever else. And, unfortunately, crushed blacks, which if you don't know what that is, take Goku's hair right here. The color of black, that is. If behind him, the background behind his hair was black, and there wasn't special care taken to make sure his hair stood out against the blackness, that would be the same color, his hair would blend into the background, minus the highlights in his hair. Yeah. That's what that means. So, yeah, if you have something in the background, or if you have a background color that's the same color as something in the foreground, it can easily bleed into the background. So, yeah, and that's not intended. So, yeah. But those were pretty minor gripes in comparison to what is on these discs. What's on these discs is actually really good. There's a decent amount of grain left in. One of the pet peeves of a lot of people when it comes to Funimation's remasters of Dragon Ball Z is that Funimation likes to scrub away all the fucking grain with DVR and then really shittily color correct it, sometimes crop, and then boost the color saturation and brighten the colors. Way too fucking much, so they make your eyes hurt. That's not how Dragon Ball Z is supposed to look. If you get any of the Blu-ray releases that are out currently, it genuinely just it's migraine inducing. And it's bullshit. And Funimation, the people at Funimation continually fucking bullshit, gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss, and fucking lie to people's faces with how their remasters are, because they still want to sell this shit. I talked about this when it came to the home releases of Dragon Ball, so I'll keep this short. They just really want to market the fuck out of everything for Dragon Ball Z that they can to wring as much money out of the consumer as possible. It is insulting to us as consumers, and they don't care. Those specific people at Funimation in the marketing department and the higher-ups, they do not give a shit. They don't care. The only people at Funimation that actually care are people like Chris Sabat, but he is just a dub director, producer. I'm assuming like producer or line. Like I think he has probably contributed to scripts and everything. He is the main dub director and producer and showrunner of the Dragon Ball Z English dubs. He cares about the quality, the visual quality, as does Sean Schemmel, the voice of Goku. I will give Sean credit there, even though Sean comes off as a bit of a narcissist who genuinely just needs to tone down his ego a bunch of times. He fucking blocked me on Twitter several years ago, back in like 2018, I think this was. This is a funny story. He blocked me on Twitter because I tagged him in something that was talking about the redubbing for Dragon Ball Z, and that Funimation did back in the mid 2000s for the Orange Bricks. First the Ultimate Uncuts, then the Orange Bricks. And I had tagged him about that. Shouldn't have done that, but whatever. He responded, misunderstanding what I was trying to say. Then I corrected him on what I was saying, or explaining what I was trying to say, and he said it was okay, but then he ended up fucking blocking me and deleting his tweets from the thread. I am very certain I still have the screenshot of what he tweeted somewhere. Probably on my Twitter, but whatever. But yeah, nice, Sean. Nice. Unblock me on Twitter, you fuck. Anyways, it's like, bro, that was just a fucking misunderstanding. You didn't have to block me. Just makes you look like a fucking idiot. Anyways, who can't take criticism. Anyways, so, yeah, but just, I will give Sean credit in regards to the fact that he understands what, like, the visual quality should be of Dragon Ball Z, and both he and Chris Sabat just want the best for the fans. That's all they care about, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the hell out of that, because they could just not care, and they wouldn't be probably any different from certain other people in the industry, but they care, and that's great. Sabat himself is a fan of the material when it comes to Dragon Ball, and Sean Schemmel himself feels a personal connection to Goku. He's told the story many times at cons, so I'll let you guys look up why. But it's like they very much care about presenting a good product, and the marketing people at Funimation and the people in charge of the remasters don't. They don't care as long as they get money. They're not any better than Toei. But yeah, that's also the thing. And I'll talk about that more when we get to the AB group remasters. But yeah, the level sets are great. Unfortunately, these two volumes are the only ones that we've gotten. They announced 2 more for levels 2.1 and 2.2, which, by the way, there were supposed to be about 18, so there were about 16 more to go after these. and then 14 more after the 2.2 or the 2.1 and 2 sets. But after they announced them, even with box art previewed on websites, they canceled them quietly. I have told this elsewhere, but to keep it short, basically, because the level sets did not sell well. You may notice the episode counts, they're about 17 each. These probably, I think, retailed for like $30-some, maybe early 30s in regards to the amounts, for only 17 episodes, so it's like around twice the amount of the amount. It's like $2 an episode, which isn't that necessarily that bad, but when you have from 2007 to 2009 the Orange Brick sets, which collected all of the show with like 30-some episodes a set, maybe 30-some to 40-some episodes a set, for around like $20-25 a pop for a 291 episode TV show on DVD that satisfied the casual fans. And then what you do is you release the Dragon boxes, which have around 40 to 42 episodes a set. That satisfies the other part of the fucking fandom that wants the better visual quality that the Orange Bricks did not provide. And everything, as well as catered to the Japanese dub fans specifically. That's what those sets were aimed at, or who those sets were aimed at. And they didn't make that any secret. You have 2 different sets released over the course of 4 years. Then you have what I'm going to talk about in a bit, Dragon Ball Z Kai, which is most of the fillers cut out, actually decent HD remaster, better English dub, and just is released in a consistent packaging style. First there was the individual parts, then they collected them in 4 season sets. It just boggles the mind how in the previous 4 years they had released 2 different versions of Dragon Ball Z, the original cut. Then they also had Kai. Then they thought that they could just wring more money by doing these Blu-rays. I think that they should have waited another 2 to 3 years after 2011 to do that. Kai would have finished its course in 2012, and on top of that, you would have given people a few more years to start wanting Blu-rays for Dragon Ball Z. So, yeah. Then we have these. Yeah, no, I don't want to talk about those. I want to talk about something positive first. I'm going to talk about these in a little bit. Dragon Ball Z Kai and Dragon Ball Z Kai The Final Chapters. I'm putting these in the good category. Mainly because they're actually good. Mainly Dragon Ball Z Kai Final Chapters has a bit of caveats. I'll talk about that in a second. Dragon Ball Z Kai, if you don't quite know, is a recut of the original Dragon Ball Z. Toei farmed out in like 2000, maybe late 2008, maybe mid to late 2008. They farmed out production to a company known as Q-Tech in Japan to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Dragon Ball Z series, to recut from their original masters, or the first gen film masters, Dragon Ball Z into a less filler-filled recut to be closer to the pacing and the storytelling and everything of the manga for Dragon Ball. So yeah. On top of that, Q-Tech also did remastering to the film. What they did is they took everything, gave it a good color correction. In some cases, they had to redraw frames due to like TV standards changed at the time, and some other things. There was some light censorship. There's less as it goes on, but there's some light censorship here and there to make it more presentable. Because Dragon Ball Z Kai aired at 9 a.m., 9:30 a.m. somewhere in that. Dragon Ball Z originally aired on Wednesdays, at like 5:30 p.m. I believe. on Fuji TV, I believe, or something like that. Dragon Ball Z Kai aired at 9:30 a.m. on Fuji TV on Saturdays or Sunday mornings. So yeah, different standards. Plus, they had to redraw the scenes with the strobe effects for the flashing lights because post Electric Soldier Porygon World, literally about 10 years after, so they had to conform to those standards, which that's not a bad thing in my opinion. Some people complain in some releases of Toei material, like let's say Gekiso Sentai Car Ranger for the Shout DVDs, where the strobe effects were either toned down or changed completely. This also happened with, I think, Gal Ranger and a few other Sentais. Whereas Toei's DVDs from the early 2000s or mid 2000s, or even late 90s, were not the same, basically. Some people complain about that, but in my opinion, it's like they're trying to make sure people don't have epileptic fits. That's the one case in regards to visual like changes that Toei does that I'm actually all for, because yeah, sometimes it can hurt my eyes too, to have like bright flashing lights in my fucking eyes. It's part of why I don't like the season set Blu-rays, but yeah, for Dragon Ball Z. But yeah, and then they did that, and there were also redrawings of some damaged frames, which can look weird because of how they were digitally animated and everything. So, yeah. Some people don't like Kai because of those things. Kai is actually not that bad. There's this dude, Tony Strongstyle, I think his YouTube name is, where he did an entire video going over the US release history of Dragon Ball Z, and he calls Kai bad. I'm just like, what are you basing that on? Just some light censorship and some redrawn frames here and there? No, Kai actually is a pretty decent remaster. Is it the best we could have gotten? Probably not, but it's still good. It's still leagues above anything Funimation's done in the last fucking almost 20 years. Not even a contest. But yeah, if you're not going to get the Dragon boxes and you're waiting for an actual good Blu-ray release of Kai or Dragon Ball Z that's in its full format and everything, all 291 episodes, settle for Kai. That's also a thing I can very much recommend. Settle for Kai for now. You're getting not as much material, but the pacing is much better because there's very little filler left in. And on top of that, some of the filler that's left in is just very minor to the point where it's just negligible, you know? But yeah, plus you're getting a better English dub if you prefer the English dubs. You're getting a better English dub. That's also a thing. Dragon Ball Z's English dub is terrible. So many people defend it. Not even the actors fucking defend it. Are you fucking kidding me? In regards to the quality on it? Oh my god, even they know it's terrible. Like, the scripts are bad. The actors will tell you their acting was bad because they were amateurs at the time. Even with the re-recordings that they did for the Ultimate Uncuts and Orange Bricks, I would never call the Dragon Ball Z dub good. Like, I can't. I don't believe it. Like, fuck that. But yeah, and then there's the Falconer score. I could not care less for the Falconer score. I don't care. So, yeah. But yeah, if you're new to the franchise or you're just wanting to check out something, Kai. Better pacing, better English dub, good remaster. I can recommend these very easily. The only thing, though, is beware the music. Kenji Yamamoto, who was a composer for Dragon Ball way back to the 80s, I believe, if not the 90s, he went on to... He composed tracks for Dragon Ball way back in the 80s and 90s. Then he went on to do video game soundtracks for the Dragon Ball video games, most notably the Budokai games. Then he went on to score the first 98 episodes of Kai. Several episodes before Kai ended in Japan, it was found out by Toei I'm assuming after an investigation, that Kenji Yamamoto had very, very heavily plagiarized other scores from various films and TV shows, and popular music tracks from international bands and artists. So they had to replace the soundtrack for this. The season sets, like I have here, they had to replace it with the original Kikuchi score. Now, the Kikuchi score is what I actually kind of prefer for Dragon Ball. And I'm not too much of a purist on Dragon Ball Z, to where I notice that the tracks are placed differently than they were in Dragon Ball Z. But considering Kai is kind of different anyways from Dragon Ball Z, I'm like, yeah, give or take for that. It may bother you, but it may not bother me. It doesn't really bother me that much. But yeah. I'm wondering if there's a fan edit of the dub, of the English dub specifically, to place the Kikuchi score, like placements to the original placements that they were in the original Z cut of the anime. If there is, maybe track that down if you're a fan of that original placement for the Kikuchi score. Otherwise, for the first 98 episodes of Kai, I can very easily recommend them. I got back into Dragon Ball by watching Kai. Kai is really good. The English dub is so good, it was used as a template for future English dubs of Dragon Ball media, like Kai the Final Chapters, Battle of Gods, Resurrection F, Super Broly, and Superhero, as well as probably other future Dragon Ball media as well that gets dubbed. So yeah, now we're on Dragon Ball Z Kai the Final Chapters. This one's a step down from the first 98 episodes of Kai. The reason for that is, rather than continue farming out the work to Q-Tech, Toei decided to save a bit more money, because they're stingy like that, and do this in-house with their own people. You'd think that would be good, but no. Now, I will say, even for Funimation, the Buu Saga episodes were always the best looking, because they're probably the newest and the film stock is probably not the worst. I will say they did a decent color correction to the footage. They did an okay job with the reframing and everything. That's also the thing. When it aired on TV, Dragon Ball Z Kai, the first 98 episodes, were reframed to widescreen. That's a different thing than just cropping. Reframing, they expanded upon the images a bit. They made sure everything fit within the frames. Dragon Ball Z Kai could be seen in widescreen, and it would be fine, the first 98 episodes. I'm kind of surprised Funimation chose to put them out in 4:3 rather than the widescreen versions. But I'm actually not that peeved about them, or I haven't lost sleep ever over that. I actually kind of prefer to watch Dragon Ball Z in its original 4:3, no matter if it's the original cut of it or Kai. Kai the Final Chapters was cropped into widescreen. So yeah, just to show this in regards to the main differences, you can see right here, this says 1080p 4:3 HD native. This says 1080p 16:9 HD native. So yeah. And yeah, I'm not going to talk about the release history of Kai, the Final Chapters, that much. Short of it is, it was originally commissioned by Toei to be done for international airings and home releases. The reason for that is the first 98 episodes did really well overseas, particularly in America. It did not do too well in Japan. There was not a lot of... One of the other reasons that they did this, in addition to celebrating the 20th anniversary of Dragon Ball Z, was to sell, or to try and get more merchandise moving. That was also a thing. Bandai wanted to do that. Because at that time, the shows had been long since done airing in Japan. There weren't any more movies. The most they were getting were video games. And internationally, after America, Canada, UK, basically all the English-speaking territories in the West, the well was starting to dry up in regards to Dragon Ball stuff, because all the shows and movies and TV specials have been dubbed, and the hype was starting to die down and everything. And we were still getting video games, so that was basically about it. So they did that. They initially wanted to do another series with Toriyama at the helm, because they knew the failure of GT was partly because Toriyama wasn't involved. Toriyama wasn't interested at the time. Then Dragon Ball Evolution came out in 2009, and then he made Battle of the Gods in 2013, but story for a different time. But yeah, because he hated Dragon Ball Evolution so much, he actually did that to say fuck you to Fox, but yeah, which is great. But yeah, so they just did the recut of Dragon Ball Z into Kai. It didn't do too well in Japan. It stopped after 98 episodes. But then they commissioned this in 2013, about 2 years later. And then, from what I know, international dubbing companies like Funimation, started getting the episodes in like 2013, 2014. They started dubbing, or translating and dubbing the episodes as they normally do. But the thing with Toei is that they want TV deals for some reason with Dragon Ball. And then at some point, Toonami started airing Dragon Ball Z Kai, the first 98 episodes, in around 2014, maybe 2015. And then towards the end of 2016, they announced officially the English dub of Dragon Ball Super and Kai the Final Chapters pretty much on the same day, then started airing them back to back in an hour time slot. Yeah, after the 90th episode of Kai aired on Toonami, which they aired uncut, you know. But yeah, but yeah, Kai the Final Chapters, the HD remaster is fine. It's not great, but it's fine. I don't care if I don't mind if I ever watch it. Again, I probably will at some point. The English dub is the same level of quality, I would say, as the first 98 episodes, because the actors are still in top form, the scripts are good, the translations are good. It's just good all around. So yeah. The only other thing in regards to a what do you call it? What is the word I'm trying to think of? Controversy, there we go. A controversy is that Chris Sabat wanted to sneak Team 4-Star into the dub of Kai the Final Chapters. They recorded something, I believe, in 2015 for the little filler scene with the recreation of the Cell games. And they had Team 4-Star originally record that because Chris Sabat's a big fan of them. They're big fans of Dragon Ball. It's a reciprocity kind of thing. On top of that, they're all friends and everything. And Team 4-Star have worked for Funimation in regards to dubs and everything. So, yeah. So that he was trying to sneak them in. Then there was a commercial on Toonami where Moscow X and Lanny Pator could be heard using their abridged voices for Goku and Vegeta. And then people got the word out about that on social media. Toei eventually found out and forced Chris Sabat, before the episode aired, to replace the audio. And they quickly replaced the audio with the audio from the dub of the same scene from Dragon Ball Z. Yeah. Justice for Team 4-Star. But anyways, on top of that, Toei forced Funimation to stop hiring Lanny, Kaiser, and Takahata 101 for their dubs. I hate that. They're just actors doing fucking jobs for a media company. fuck you, Toei. Okay? I don't even really give a shit if they banned them from being in Dragon Ball dubs, which, funnily enough, Kaiser and Lanny have done, like, incidental voices for some Dragon Ball products. Like, Kaiser did a secondary voice in Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F at the beginning of the movie for one of Frieza's soldiers. Then, Lanny apparently did background voices for Dragon Ball Super. The only remnants of that scene's dub with Team 4-Star is Lanny in his Krillin voice going, "Make sure to buy all Mr. Satan merchandise at your local vendor," I believe is what the line is. They kept that in, but everything else got removed. Yeah. Luckily, you can track down that scene on YouTube because it was still on a streaming version of it, I think on Verizon. So, yeah, before it was eventually replaced. But someone screen recorded it and put it out online. Thankfully, that is out. Holy Christ. Thankfully, that is out. Because otherwise, I would be pissed. But yeah, justice for Team 4-Star. But yeah, then we get to the music, which is Sumitomo's score. Sumitomo is the guy who is currently doing the scores, I believe, for animated Dragon Ball media. He did the score for Dragon Ball Super, I believe as well Super Broly. I'm not sure about Super Hero. But yeah, he's majorly known for doing the score for Dragon Ball Super. And I think maybe as well Battle of Gods and Resurrection F. I can't remember for the life of me, though. But he did the score for this. Most of his tracks, I would say, are fine. The problem, however, is some of his tracks are not fitting whatsoever. And should have been replaced for other tracks, or with other tracks that he had already recorded, or new ones that he would have to record. They sound like really bad disco music, is basically what I'm saying there. Or is basically why I'm saying that there. So, yeah. But when it comes to this, I'd say watch Kai the Final Chapters. The majority of the bad filler from the original cut of Z is gone. Thank fuck. I hate the fucking... I don't care for the... I wouldn't say I hate it, because I haven't really watched it, but I don't really care for the filler of Gohan as Great Saiyaman in his high school shit. I really fucking hate the filler where Goku and Vegeta are inside Majin Buu's body and have to fight off, like, the different shit inside of his body. The only thing that's actually cool there is the imaginations of Gotenks, Gohan, and Piccolo that they have to fight in Buu's head. But other than that, I don't care for any of the other filler there, because it's just... no. It's just really childish, and it's fucking stupid. Adds more to the fucking mood whiplash the entire arc has problems with. But yeah. And then what else? The only filler that I don't like that they kept in was the Hell filler. Because here's the thing. Kai was originally made to be more close to the manga. The original Dragon Ball Z added filler in places to depict Hell. At the time, in the manga, Toriyama had not depicted Hell. In Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F and Dragon Ball Super, Hell would be depicted for the first time canonically in Dragon Ball from Toriyama's own mind. So, yeah, and it is a different type of Hell than Dragon Ball Z originally had. You can see where the problems are. It was all the Hell filler was excised from the first 98 episodes. Mainly the part where Goku is trying to go to King Kai's place to train and everything, and he ends up in Hell for an episode or two. Yeah. That was kept in this. Or at least some of the scenes were. Fuck that. Just take that out. You didn't need it. It doesn't even really help with the pacing. It's just weird to keep that shit in. On top of that, they took out a scene that is manga material with the, I think, bounty hunters or whatever they're called. Whatever they are. And they cut that out, I'm assuming because censorship. I think that they were thinking that US TV broadcasters were not going to want to show that. However, which was probably a safe bet at the time, but at the same time, it's just like, don't cut that shit out. Let Funimation handle that when it comes to broadcasting it for the censorship they have to do. Leave in the manga material, take out the majority of the fucking filler that is not necessary. I hate that. It gets worse when the fact that Gaz and Mez fucking still talk as if Goku had gone to hell, which didn't happen in Kai. Happened in the original Z, but not Kai. But yeah, had they taken out those hell scenes and kept in that scene of the initial scene introducing the dudes that are just thinking, oh, it's the end of the world, better just kill a bunch of people because why not? Just fucking do a purge. And I think that Kai the Final Chapters would be the best cut of the Buu saga in anime form. The original Z or the original Z cut of the Buu saga, I got fucking bored half the time. On top of that, I experienced mood whiplash the last time I watched the original cut of it. Yeah, but yeah, dub's still good. Okay remaster, the only bad parts are the filler they left in, the stuff they cut out that was canon manga material, and the cropping. On top of that, there's a green tint for no reason in the episodes. I don't know why. So if Toei hadn't made those mistakes in having the green tint, the cropping, the hell fillers being left in, the which is I think 3 or 4 scenes at best that are not that long. Fucking dumb. Anyways, but yeah, and kept 4x3 versions of the episodes for home media releases like Q-Tech did. I would say Kai the Final Chapters would be the best cut of these episodes. But yeah. And now we get on to middle of the road to bad releases of stuff that's on film, or at least I assume is on film. Sailor Moon. Let's talk about Sailor Moon. So I previewed the first several minutes of the first episode of this release. Sailor Moon was licensed and then redubbed into English and then re-released in these limited edition box sets, which are pretty nice, I will say, by Viz Media between 2014 and 2019. Yeah. Because, 5 seasons, 1 season a year, makes sense. I think they could have done it faster, but makes sense. But yeah. These releases are middle of the road. Why do I say that? Season 1 specifically of Sailor Moon has a really bad remaster. The rest of the show isn't much better, but they have a few things that are better. But really fucking bad. Almost like Funimation Orange Brick territory. Jesus Christ. But yeah. But almost Funimation Orange Brick territory. And Dragon Ball Z Blu-ray territory when it comes to these things. Now, admittedly, Toei apparently doesn't have the best masters for Sailor Moon. The original 90s anime. I don't know why that is. It doesn't make any fucking sense to me why they don't have any proper film masters for this shit, but they do for Dragon Ball. Sailor Moon was being made at the same time Dragon Ball Z was, but they don't have film masters, or at least good ones, for Sailor Moon when it was one of their top earning anime at the fucking time. Toei blows my mind with how stupid they are. Anyways, so yeah, so Viz Media got, I'm assuming what are standard def, terribly degraded masters from Toei. And these remasters do not service these episodes well at all. I'm just gonna say that right now. there's... It's basically Orange Brick level territory, but in 4x3, which is funny, because now we have a release of Dragon Ball Z like that. Anyways, so I'm just gonna lay out the problems for you. So these aren't 4x3, thank fuck. They weren't cropped to widescreen. Fuck that, Funimation. Anyways, so basically, terrible color correction. Like, I don't believe Sailor Moon is supposed to look like it does on these discs. The colors are a bit warped. And on top of that, they tried to do a bit of an aggressive DV&R solution to clean up everything. Then they boosted the colors and contrast. They look awful. Like, I've seen comparisons between, I think it was the Italian DVDs. For some reason, Italy has the best DVD sources that I think Viz could have easily gotten and then upscaled to 1080p. But whatever. But yeah. I've seen comparisons with these Blu-rays and 480p sources. The 480p sources were somehow better than they were on these Blu-rays. That shouldn't happen. But yeah. It's just a mess with these. On top of that, Season 1 has the problem of ghosting artifacts. Which, if you don't know, that's basically where a frame gets left behind for a second or two when it comes to a camera cut, although also when characters move. Season 1 of Sailor Moon has that problem for every single episode. Some episodes have it less, but every one of them basically has it. Viz Media, to their credit, did acknowledge that, but they blamed it on the bad masters rather than their bad, I think, Blu-ray programming. Because every single Sailor Moon, set afterwards, doesn't have the ghosting problems. Yeah, I don't know why either. But yeah. But now, we have these Sailor Moon Blu-rays. Now, I know what you're thinking. Aren't those just a re-release of the earlier Blu-rays? No. No, they are not. These are taking... At the same time, Viz was working on an HD remaster for the series. So was Toei in Japan. Toei didn't have much better masters, but they handled the process in a different way. And these masters at least look okay. Not the best the show could look, but these look fine. They have slightly better color correction than Viz's sets. They have more detail preserved, thankfully. And the colors look fine. The colors look about what I expect for these. They look like the colors look closer to the actual promo art for these sets than these do. So yeah. On top of that, if you get these, they have the special features found on these Blu-rays. So you're really not missing anything getting these outside of the boxes for these. You're not missing anything. On top of that, these are less money. These cost way too much, but I think Viz was trying to make their money back on the investment. So I understand. As well as the cost to dub them into English, again, with better scripts and new actors. So yeah, and I'm just gonna say this. If you're a fan of the 90s Sailor Moon Deke dub, and then later I think Cloverway, whatever companies worked on the dubs for Sailor Moon, for the first 4 seasons, the 5th one was deemed like you couldn't air it in America for some reason. But yeah, if you're a fan of the Deke dub, those dubs are nowhere to be found on these discs. To which case, I don't care. I could not care less. It is basically the same as the Dragon Ball Z English dub with the Bruce Faulconer music. I don't care. Bad dub. Bad shitty dub from the 90s. And I can say that with confidence. I've seen clips even if the scripts were fine, I don't think much of the casting is that great. I'm fine with pissing off Sailor Moon fans, because, like, you guys can be fucking crazy. But anyways, now we get to the last and shittiest release I have right now for any of these shows. Dragon Ball Z! The 30th anniversary remaster in season steelbook sets on Blu-ray. Why did I get these? Well, at the time, this was like 2 or 3 years ago, at the time, I was not going to hunt down the rest of the Dragon boxes, because I didn't want to at the time. I should have. They were probably like less money at that point, but yeah. But they're also in this nice steelbook packaging. I love me some steelbooks. These are really good, like, in regards to the packaging. If there's one thing I can give Funimation, is that they consistently have good packaging and good art design and everything for their releases. And these have really good art in them. Although, this is just reusing what was on the Season 1 2013 Blu-ray. But yeah, and also, this is just funny, and I have to point this out every time. This is the same pose for Vegeta. They just had Toei redraw it. They just had the artists of Toei redraw it into a more detailed style, and I'm trying to... Let me see if I can find where it is. Because they sourced that particular version of the picture from the Dragon boxes. Here we go. You see that? They sourced it from the Dragon boxes for this. I have never seen anyone point that out, so I'm going to be the first one to point it out anyway, I guess. But yeah. These have an aggressive DeviantArt solution, bad color correction, boosting the contrast, boosting the brightness. There is a serious lack of fucking detail, shown by Funimation themselves in a fucking 2019 blog post where they tried to gaslight people into thinking these releases were good. And yeah. So, yeah, do not recommend these. I do not recommend these. On top of that, they're out of print, so you really can't get them for a decent price. They're like, it's weird, they're the Funimation equivalent to the Dragon boxes. And on top of that, Crunchyroll has since re-released, like I said, the 2013 to 14 Blu-ray masters for some reason, rather than these, because I will say, because these aren't 4x3, these are slightly better than those. On top of that, I don't think that the brightness problems are as apparent on these as those 2013 Blu-rays. They're still bad, but they're slightly less bad than the earlier season set Blu-rays. On top of that, I kind of rather get these than the 30th anniversary set, because here's the thing. Steelbook packaging, for one. That's a plus. But then two, the 30th anniversary set, from which these masters are sourced, in regards to the packaging, is shit. They put the discs in these books, these booklets, rather than regular Blu-ray cases, or at the very least, cases with Blu-ray disc holders, like these have, you know. So a lot of people, when they got the discs, had the discs scratched to fuck. Yeah. Great idea, Funimation. But yeah, disrespectful, very bad packaging design, shit remaster. The 2019 30th anniversary remaster of Dragon Ball Z was just a misfire from all angles. No better example to point to than that. But yeah. And these are slightly better than the orange bricks, because they do try to maintain, like, the line quality and make sure things aren't deleted, but at the same time, the DVR solution that they have and the sharpening filter and whatever the fuck else that they apply to the footage is just really bad. So it's literally went one step forward, two steps back with these releases. Thankfully, AB Group in France are currently, slowly, but currently putting out remasters of the original Dragon Ball series in France that use AI upscaling to properly upscale the Dragon Box Masters of the original Dragon Ball series to 1080p, sometimes restoring some of the what do you call it? Some of the detail in the picture, and then they take a good amount of color correction to it, to every frame, to make sure that the episodes look good and actually look as intended, as they were originally animated, as they were originally drawn and colored back in the 1980s. It's basically what Discotech did for Digimon Adventure 1, for both the English and Japanese versions of the show. Discotech did a very similar thing right here, where they took the original the original masters for both cuts of the show and used AI upscaling to bring them up into 1080p HD and do a decent color correction. They also got rid of the rainbowing and shimmering, which is something more than Viz does. But yeah. Discotech actually care. Funimation does not. Viz half cares, half doesn't. It depends on how they feel, I guess. But yeah. Basically support Discotech Media. Anyways, yeah. So when it comes to remasters and everything for this, you will get a very mixed bag, at the very least when it comes to anime. Just know what to look for and do your research before you get certain releases. When it comes to Dragon Ball Z, specifically, do your research on any future releases that come out. Do not get anything that crops the shit to widescreen, remasters it with a horrible DVR solution, badly color corrects it, and boosts the contrast. Just don't do it. Don't support that shit. Don't support any re-releases of previous ones either. Do not support the repackagings of the Orange Bricks. Do not support the repackagings of the season set Blu-rays from 2013 and 14. I cannot stress that enough. Do not support those. Please do not support those. Those are terrible releases that should never have come out in the first place. Funimation holds no respect for their customers. And that is just apparent. They don't care. At least parts of the company don't. I'm not going to try to blanket term everybody who works at that company, or still does, just under the Crunchyroll banner. Yeah, hopefully with Crunchyroll, with Funimation being folded over into Crunchyroll, the people at Crunchyroll are now in charge of what to do in regards to remasters, and they'll license the remasters from AB Group rather than doing new in-house ones. Because AB Group actually care and know what they're doing. Funimation, the people at Funimation kind of know what they're doing, but they don't care. And there's no heart or soul or pride in anything that they do when it comes to remasters of Dragon Ball Z. It's the sad reality, but that's true. That's just the truth of it. And Toei doesn't give a shit. They have no pride. They just worry about money. But yeah. So that's basically it. That's my spiel on this. So yeah. So really not much else to say. So link subscription to all of my shit. Subscribe if you want. And I'll see you guys in the next one.